What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show you how well these two old GTX 970s perform in SLI configuration in 2019. But before that, please don't forget to subscribe down below and check out my other videos, and thank you for watching. So let's say we go back 5 years to the year of 2014, and if you were lucky enough to have $1,500 to $2,000 to spend on a nice system like this for gaming and streaming, how well would it hold up in 2019? Well, let's find out. Okay, now let's go over the parts of this high-end build. For the platform, I chose the legendary i7-4790k, which has been the king for many years, and there was really no need to upgrade until a few years back when the i7-8700k came out. Because of its clock speed and easily overclocked to 4.7 gigahertz, this thing really competed all the way up to i7-7700k, and you know, for people who know what they have, there was really no need to upgrade at all. For the motherboard, I chose the Asrock Z97 Extreme 4, which is a great motherboard for SLI and overclocking. It features two PCI Express 3rd gen lanes, which will allow you to get the most out of your SLI configuration. And I also do recommend getting a dual band SLI bridge like you see here in the video. Next, we have a 16 gigabyte memory kit which features 2400 megahertz, and that was pretty much the highest megahertz frequency that you could get back in 2014, and it runs really well and it's very easy to use. Just activate the XMP profile and it'll pick it up right away, and you'll run at 2400 megahertz no problem. Also, believe it or not, this motherboard featured the M.2 option, and I am using a standard M.2 drive, Samsung 128 gig for my boot drive. Now, I did attempt originally to use an NVMe drive in there just to see what happens, and yes, I was able to load Windows on it, but I did not see this drive come up in the BIOS, and I do have the latest BIOS on this motherboard, I believe. Yeah, I did check so, and that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable, so I went ahead and just put in a standard M.2 drive, and it does show up in the BIOS and everything is running just fine. For the secondary storage, I got a 1 terabyte Western Digital hard drive to put some games here on this mechanical drive, which is a perfect combination for this build, and it runs quite well. Next, we have the Corsair HX850W power supply. It's very old, but it is good. It's silver rated and it's semi-modular, plenty of connections, and it's just enough juice for this you know, power hungry system. We are running SLI, and the processor is overclocked between 4.5 to 4.7 gigahertz. Depends on the games I'm running. Some of the games are running really hot. One example here is the Battlefield 5. If you ever want to test out your build, you really want to test it out on Battlefield 5, because it really tests the power and of your CPU. It really puts a lot of strain on it. That's a really good benchmark if you're really wondering how well your system runs. I really like to measure my new builds on Battlefield 5 to really get those good results. For the cooling, I have the Corsair H100 second version. It's a very nice cooler. It does its best, but once again, to note that this system, anything after 4.5 gigs, it runs pretty hot. This is an older processor now, and I'm sure the thermals underneath there are probably running quite thin, and definitely be qualified for a good delit for this processor to really get the most. But I'm able to control it between 4.5 and 4.7 depending on which game I'm playing. I also have a DVD burner up on top, and for the case I chose this old Corsair Obsidian 550D, which is a really nice, sleek, high-end case. It keeps everything cool. It doesn't have a window panel or anything, but it really looks, you know, solid and professional, and it's a really nice case. In my opinion, they don't really make good cases anymore, and I really like the older case look. And for aesthetics here, I have 5 King Wing blue LED ring style fans, which brings out a really nice look to this build, along with a 1 blue LED strip right there. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the build. Now all there's left to do is to see how well this thing performs in today's modern games and some of the older titles. Just to note that I am going to be testing only SLI compatible games to really bring out the strength of these two GTX 970s and running in SLI mode. Also, check out my other videos on my channel. I'll have individual videos for each of the games running in SLI mode, both in 1080p and 4K. I believe I should be able to achieve that in most of the titles. Yeah, so without further ado, let's get to it. Just want to show you something really quick here at the CPU-Z. As you could see, the processor is 4790k and we are overclocked to 4.7 gigs. When you move over here to bench, and I'm going to choose the i7-7700k as the reference, and when you bench it, according to CPU-Z, that these two processors are pretty much identical in performance. So there really isn't a reason, like I said, to upgrade to the newer i7s until just recently, which is 8700k or 9900k or so. So there you have it. With this processor being overclocked to 4.7 gigs, the single core does beat it by a slight midget, 7% here looks like, and just a very small fraction on the multi-core thread. And then you have it. And of course, if you go to the lower generation, you see that then you get even a bigger performance gap here, slight, and then versus stock, there it is. That's the difference. So yeah, that's all I just wanted to show you, so you kind of get an idea how strong the old 4790k still is today. Okay, so the first game I'm going to test out in this SLI configuration is Battlefield 5. Let me go over all the settings here, and that's going to be pretty much what I'm going to use for the rest of the other games to test. So, as I mentioned before, we are using two GTX 970s running in SLI mode. I have them slightly overclocked at 125 MHz on the core and 225 MHz on the memory clock. Also, I have the fan profile set to 60% on both of the GPUs to keep it nice and cool and efficient. For the CPU, I have the i7-4790k clocked to 4.7 GHz. Also, I'm using 16 GB of DDR3 RAM running at 2400 MHz. So the first part we're going to use is the 1080p settings here. And as you can see, everything is on ultra, maxed out. As you could see, you could definitely run this game over 100 FPS on ultra settings with no problem. I'm not really sure what you compare this to a single graphics card, maybe like a GTX 1070, I'm not sure. You be the judge. Alright, now we'll go to the 4K mode. And we're gonna still stay on ultra settings, but for the best performance for this setup, I'd say on medium settings you'll get that good around 60 FPS performance, but we'll keep it on ultra just for the test, and we'll bring it down to medium.
À l'immensité de la guerre, une autre fourmi, un autre cadavre, et pour ne pas me laisser abattre, je me disais, je suis aimé, je suis un tirailleur, et que Dieu nous aide.
So as you can see on ultra, it's still playable, but if you lower down the settings to like medium or something, or even high, you're gonna get more FPS. It's really a preference, but the capability is definitely here. This bad boy's got a lot of possibilities. Yeah, better run. Come on. Oh boy. Let's do high settings real quick. There you go. Well, that's pretty much it. That concludes the test. As you can see, the game performs really well in SLI. It's definitely one of the better ones out there.
Notre équipement était souvent de mauvaise qualité, pas adapté. Fallait apprendre à improviser, fouiller, bricoler. Je me disais, allez d'aimer, cherche, trouve un moyen pour que ça marche.
And here we have Farcry New Dawn. Also supports SLI. Not as well as some other games, but there is a decent result. So let me go over the settings here. Okay. We are on... Oh, this is not... I don't want that. I don't want HDR. Okay, so I just turn HDR. I don't want that. So we're at 1080p, as you can see, full screen. Quality is ultra. Okay. As you can see, we're in the 70s on the usage when it comes to GPUs, which is still not bad. And you're definitely getting over 60 FPS on Ultra on 1080p. This is a pretty tough game to run. But I think once we go to a higher resolution, like 4K, we'll be able to get a better percentage usage on the GPUs. We'll see.
There's a workbench inside. Use it to build a weapon. Rush was supposed to be at peace, so that we could finally fight back. Now, we're worse off. I'm sorry.
Okay, now let's give it a shot at 4K.
Figure out a way to make this right.
Okay, so now you see the GPUs are being better utilized. We're in the 80s here, and around 30 FPS on 4K. It's barely playable in my opinion. Definitely, probably would make sense to go ahead and lower it down to medium or high settings. Let's see what happens. Let's go down to high settings. Okay, now we're in the 40s, not bad. And then we'll move to the medium setting.
There's that workbench I told you about. Rush said you were resourceful, so let's build something.
Okay. Okay, let's give it a normal here. Still not quite Not quite 60 FPS, but a little bit more comfortable.
You can use benches like this to build makeshift weapons and refill ammo. Nice going. That'll be enough to craft a weapon for sure. Now we're ready to pass the bridge.
Well, there you have it. There's a test for the Farcry New Dawn. As you could see, it runs pretty well. And here we have Shadow of the Tomb Raider, one of the better titles that supports SLI configuration. So let's go over the settings. As you can see, both the GPUs are almost at 100% utilized, and that's really where you want to be at when you use an SLI.
Son muchos de sus hombres.
I can never be too simple with your vibrations. We should go.
Yeah, this is Commander Rourke. Dominguez wants confirmation Croft is here. You have the photo. Female, Caucasian, early 20s. You got that?
Don't worry. Don't.
The readings of the site are unlike anything you've ever seen.
It's the key to our next phase.
If this is it,
Jonah, they've entered the dig site. It's fenced off and there's a guard at the gate. I'll find another way in.
I found a good spot. I'll watch the perimeter.
into the room. Don't be far enough out of earshot. No, please. Come on. Just do it. Wait. Not anymore. He's too sweet archaeologist. Your employment? Please, no.
Jonah, Trinity just tried to kill a local archaeologist.
Oh God.
I have to find what they're looking for.
This is Commander Rourke. All teams, get ready for Operation Blackout.
I know this figure. He's sharp. Got to make my way down. Okay, this should work. All right.
units, get ready. Dr. Dominguez is on his way down.
Damn, we better hurry. I've got this. The statue was looking at that cave.
All units, get ready. Dr. Dominguez is on his way down.
Damn, we better hurry. I've got this. The statue was looking at that cave. This is it. Jonah. I'm entering a cave. We may lose contact.
Copy that. I'll keep an eye on Trinity out here.
This cave looks like it's usually underwater. Right, shit. Should have seen that coming.
And last but not least, Witcher 3. Throwing in a good old oldie here, which is still brings a lot of graphics cards to its knees. We're gonna start off on 1080p. Let's take a look at the settings.
Tell you about this sorcerer I knew. Couldn't stop talking about how useful they are as creatures.
Because you can brew potions from their blood.
No, because by eating rotting corpses they prevent epidemics.
War is not exactly going our way.
We have a side.
The northern realms.
Radovid's realms, don't you mean? Samaria the dead are no more.
Radovid's pledged to restore the old worlds. So it's he wins the war.
Believe that.
Gotta believe something. That's what keeps us going. But
Yo, you don't.
I made
They else. Back to
use.
Yeah.
No. Yes, sir.
Let's go. So, a griffin this close to the village. Strange. Come on, Roach. Go, go. Not so fast, Roach.
well, that concludes the video. As you could see, the SLI performance works pretty well in this case. Let me know what you guys think. Leave any comments down below. Is it really worth upgrading? I don't know. Now, of course, most games don't use SLI performance, so you really would have to think about what a 970 does on its own, and I'll make a video later on reviewing the old 970 by itself, which is still a really decent card on its own. It will definitely play games on 1080p at good frame rates, medium to high settings.